Hello, welcome to the Helm Dev meeting, our weekly Helm Dev call. It's June 5th, 2025. Um, as always, we follow the CNCF Code of Conduct. We are recording this, so bear that in mind when speaking. And thanks, Robert, for taking notes. Um, just dropping a quick link into the chat for the notes. So, announcements. Matt, take it away.
All right, because we still had some regressions, we got release 3.18.2 out with some more regression fixes in there. This fixes most of them, but we still have one more, it seems, and that's in the discussion, so I'll leave it to that. But we did cut 3.18.2 on Monday.
Cool.
That's it.
All right, and I do just want to check. I don't know if George is on yet. I will ping him, but in the meantime, I'm going to skip mine for the moment and let Carlos go if you're ready.
Yeah, it's the same. I just looking for a review on that pull request. As far as I can tell, it addresses the issues raised, so I just looking for.
Okay. Oh, yes. I actually owe you a review of this. I got a bit distracted. Personally, I got a bit distracted by some of the regression fixes. Um, but I will do this. I don't know about anyone else. I see that we've already had a couple of people give comments, so.
Yeah, I address all the because George mentioned about the format, so I changed it so it keeps the previous format, so should be good.
Got it.
I
Okay.
hope.
Okay. Um, then I don't think does anyone else have anything to say about this? I think we have already discussed this in past um, Helm dev meetings, but if there was anyone that wanted to say something about this or have thoughts about this outside of that before we move on. Okay, so so then George is not on yet, so I'm going to just bump that down, and mine is. It's, I don't know, Robert, I don't mean to be doing your job here. I was just trying to like keep track for myself. Um, so my pull request, I was going to keep rather short, but also open discussion if anyone has any. I know Matt, uh, you noted something on here, and so did Andy. It was about, let me give a little bit of context. I'll keep it very brief. Um, I noticed what I don't really know is a regression at all, but is actually just some underlying change that I think at this moment I would just characterize as an implementation detail um, about authorization handling, which seems to work on every single registry, including this very, very custom one that I noticed this change on. And as I'm continuing to look deeper into it, I thought there could be a very simple fix that we could make that would also be an implementation detail that wouldn't change anything for pretty much any user that's using an OCI compliant registry. The one I was looking at is not OCI compliant in every way. It's certainly not doing things that are fully compliant. Um, and uh, it is just more complex than I thought. I had also made uh, some changes that I was looking over with Terry a while back that I ended up not putting in this PR, which would set a flag to allow people to change the auth setting. The reason I didn't even add that to this PR is I thought, again, it was an invisible implementation detail. In any case, it is not clear how to do this properly for every registry, and so I think I'm just going to close this PR. And I don't know Well, yeah, I don't know if
So
anyone has anything to say about the
so let me
specific
ask this.
PR itself.
Let's get directly to some of the technical stuff.
Yep.
The way authentication works changed, right?
Uh, correct. It changed. Yes, there are
So it
literal
functionally
changes.
changed.
Correct.
So it's not a in-place change then, right? This is not just a mere implementation detail because it's not an in-place change. It actually changed functionally how authentication and authorization works, right? Is there
Yes,
a
that
way,
is correct.
is there a way to get back to the old way that it was functionally doing it before?
Well, that's what I was trying to do.
My
And
thought,
Does that
my
actually revert
yeah,
it to the old way, or does that change it to an entirely different way?
I thought it had, but it is not easy to track because our debugging for Helm 317 and before used Docker's internal transport debugging, which did not give the details
Let
that we need for this specific thing. So
But let's even, I mean,
yeah,
that's getting down. Let's talk functionally. Was it the same method? Instead of using auth, it was
yes,
using tokens mechanism. So it does what it did before, essentially using
correct,
the token system.
correct. But something is amiss because it is not working in. Uh, while it works in some OCI registries, it does not work in some other major registries. So I am not quite sure
Do
what the problem is.
do we know which registries it does and does not work in? Is that documented somewhere?
Uh, we don't know a full list because we don't have a full testing suite, but we do know some of them, and that's documented in the PR. We know it's not working on Quay and GC. Well, it's not GCR anymore, but Google Artifact Registry. It is working on Docker Hub and other OCI compliant registries. Some,
So,
but
well, is it
yeah.
OCI compliant ones or is
Well,
it Docker distribution based ones? Because
the
that's
thing is,
different.
it is, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there actually is a full agreed upon spec for the auth part of OCI, Docker/OCI distribution. From what I understand, that's purposefully omitted from the spec. But they follow basically what, from my understanding, they both support. They all registries are supposed to, if they want to gain wide adoption, support both OAuth and basic auth, and that's pretty much where it ends. The most documented one is the ORAS
Oh
documentation,
yeah,
but that's it.
let
Yeah,
me let's walk back for a minute because
yeah,
and some folks may not know this, right? So some of the folks here I know do.
yeah,
So the OCI, there's something called the distribution spec, and that's what we
yeah,
talk about.
yeah,
Now, there's a lot of things that are not in there, like search is not in there, which is why it's different from registry to registry. There are some things before it went GA that were in there that aren't there anymore. It is very much almost like an object storage like. So things like authentication are actually not spelled out in there. So you're
yeah,
talking not about, is it client one to OCI? You're talking
yeah,
about, do you functionally integrate with the systems that are out there? And this is why you can't just
exactly.
pull up the spec and say, did I implement the spec and make everything work? It's more complicated than that because you've got this messy world of the real world of what people have done with registries. And the
Yep.
Docker client that we previously used, which ORAS v1 used under the hood, had over time learned how to elegantly handle all of these situations and make it transparent to us. If I understand it right, the ORAS v2 client actually hasn't done that yet. They haven't hit all those situations over time and run into them and then elegantly clean them up to make it very transparent to work with lots of these registries. Is that about
I'm
right?
I'm not sure if that last piece is true. I'd actually defer more to Andy and
yeah.
Terry
So
for that. I think it may be our implementation of
I
the of
think
how
I think
we're doing
I,
OCI
I
v2,
think a lot of it has to
or
do
sorry,
with.
ORS v2.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, cool. I think a lot of it comes down to is that you, as you mentioned correctly, in the past, it was gracefully changing capabilities. So if it was not passing, it was then crying to another option and kind of falling back until it found a match. And that's if we want to look at doing something similar, it's one option we can consider is to if we get a 401, try another method and see if we can get that to work. That was kind of what I was going to talk to you, Scott, about is can we go ahead and have a fallback mechanism to not do OAuth, not set that flag initially? If it fails, go ahead and try it. If it fails again, well, you just fail.
Well, that yeah. So what we would do if I this part is what I don't quite fully understand, but so this is one of the things I wanted to follow up with Terry about because Terry mentioned something like that, but the opposite, which was to start with basic, or so excuse me, uh, start with OAuth like V1 did, or excuse me, or SV1 did, with a fallback to basic auth,
Okay,
which is I
sorry.
think,
Whatever the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
defaults in
Yes.
V1, we should follow,
Otherwise,
and
yes.
then yes, okay.
And I just haven't fully verified that because the tooling that again, and it's not just Oris, it's the way we used it too. And the
What
specific things we called, and I haven't yet been able to verify
what
exactly
I
how that
would
works.
what I would recommend let's do is let's have a discussion with
Yeah,
the Auras team
yeah,
and find out. Let's not guess. Let's just go ahead and talk to the experts, and they'll be able to tell us.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I've basically been connecting with Terry about that mainly because in light of Terry being an Oris maintainer, but I agree that it's probably something that should be raised to the wider group. I will say that this seems to be a pretty far edge case, given that no one, except in this extremely weird use case I was looking at, has even noticed this. And I
I'd
will
like
say
to
one thing.
point out
Yeah,
that most Helm users have not upgraded to the latest, so they have not actually experienced this yet. So
right,
there's
right,
probably registries and things out there that we don't know about that we just haven't
possibly.
heard about it yet because
Yep,
due to lack of upgrading. So don't think everybody's on the latest like we are. Lots of people slowly
understood.
upgrade. And so I expect more of this to come up. And I do consider this to be a regression. Scott, you've got a pull request over this. Do you actually have an issue for it?
That's what I was debating today is whether I
No,
should
we need to
make
file
one
an
or whether
issue
we should see
right
that
now. We
this
need to make an
was,
issue and not leave it on the PR. Let's file an
yeah,
actual proper issue and
yeah,
capture a bunch of this information there, like
yeah,
registries it works, once it doesn't, all of the ins and outs
hmm
of this, so we understand it. Because
yeah,
this is technically a regression as well that's still unaddressed from that change from ORS V1 to V2, because some registries and functionality that were supported and functionally worked before no longer do.
And then once that issue is created, let's go ahead and create an associated issue on the Aura side, referencing the one that we create on this side, so we can
yeah,
go ahead and start getting the conversation going.
yeah, yeah. That makes total sense. Um, I think my main, yeah, I mean, I suppose that makes sense. My main question was, um, well, yeah, I'll make that, and then the priority of that can be we can address that on its own. Um, but yeah, I think Andy and Terry, I think you two were on the same page about discussing the fallback mechanisms. I think that's basically where we left it. And the only other thing on that PR that's not really specifically related to this, but did come up, um, is I just happened to mention, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had uh, some more integration testing around that? And I think we all know that it would, but maybe I'll just sort of
It would
flag
also
that as a separate.
be very good if there's a reference to the way, or if we can start a document to the way folks do
I
authentication with OCR registries.
I was going to go ahead and say let's get an issue around this, just so we can track it holistically.
Yeah. Because when we build an integration or something test suite, we we probably want to know what we're going to test. So
Yeah. And I would
It,
just ask one more thing for people. Oh, sorry. Did you want to say something, Matt?
no, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just asked one potential piece of just putting this out there, potential help from other maintainers or other people who might be extremely good at. If
Why,
someone out here is
so
very,
let,
very good at parsing, uh, uh, let's say, like request capturing using some tool like Wireshark or something like that, I am actually not that great at it. It is pretty, there's an enormous amount of things to capture that way. The debugging pieces that Terry put in or basically re-added for Helm v318 are fantastic for this. It just doesn't help us get to actually seeing exactly what was being done in 317. So,
let me go ahead and I'll take the lead on creating the issue for us to increase the test suite, and then we can go ahead and build on
okay.
top of that.
Okay. Yeah. And this last question was for the original issue, the original regression issue. If someone could, if anyone's good at that, please just let me know because you could actually probably help identify the exact specifics of what's going on because the actual requests and responses, they look very similar. I just can't actually connect them directly to what was coming from 317 because we don't have tooling for it.
I'll send you some links, but the easier way to probably debug this is just using an HTTP proxy and use that to dump the requests rather than Wireshark. But I'll send you details so we can.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I mean, if we're gonna, move away from just trying to do deep debugging, because we know there's different mechanisms, the Docker CLI, which is where the underlying packages came from that did all this authentication mechanism, they are Apache 2 open source. So it's one of those things where you can go look at the flow that they did, and then also look, not spending on hours and hours debugging, but saying, okay, we know we have to implement a flow with fallback. Let's look at how they did their flow and what they did, and see how to closely do that with auras, and just see if that works, right? Because if we spend weeks trying to figure out how to debug it, when we're not actually spending time just changing the flow, which we know already needs to happen in order to remove this regression, then maybe it's time to start just working on it.
And I've gone ahead and I've gone ahead and added debugging into and just kind of hot fixing things at certain libraries to be able to add additional debugging when I need to, and it works fine. So I think let's get the issue created and let's kind of just swarm on it as we need it.
Absolutely, will do. Will do. Okay, I think that was it for, I didn't actually put this on the list, but I probably should, because this is a quick note, but another OCI regression, since this came up, was specifically debugging output, and that is a PR that is open that Terry added. I didn't add that to a milestone yet, Matt, but that was something that existed in 317 but doesn't exist in 318 anymore.
And there's PRs open for it, and it's in the path to be reviewed. So I think it's already got one on the main one, already has at least one approval. Lubber had done that, and so it needs a second one. Is it in yet?
It is. It is. And so is
the backport's in now?
Yes.
Backport still needs to be merged. I guess the way the logging is handled is questionable to me on that one. It's one thing that needs to think about, I guess.
Okay. Well, I'll try to give that a good look this week.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks for indulging me there as the moderator. And okay, moving on to George's issue.
So quickly, GitHub deprecated issue template.md apparently some time ago, and they now no longer support. So when people create issues, they just get a blank, and I think maybe an error message currently. So someone has contributed PR to update to the new modern system. I took a look. It looks pretty good for a first pass, but if anybody has any immediate comments, otherwise, I would suggest we can merge this one, and then it might be more obvious once we see some real usage. What improvements can be made.
Yeah, I had this one open. Things look good on a quick skim. I just wanted to compare the before and afters and make sure everything worked out. But it did look good. So we probably, that's one of them we need to review this week and get in.
I would say
one of my open tabs.
Okay, cool. Hopefully you don't have as many open tabs as I do.
I also love this, by the way, and as soon as issue templates came out, and that was a while ago now, I was thinking, oh my gosh, we ought to implement this, but it was just never a high priority. So I'm kind of psyched about it because it'll actually require people to add something. I know that Terry mentioned one missing field, but besides that, I think it's looking great.
Yeah, I would say we currently have nothing, so
yeah.
So anything we should add, as long as it's not too bad, is better than what we've got at the moment. So, and we can take a second pass at some point. Awesome.
Thanks, George. Okay, so then Ingi is up next.
Yeah, so has everybody heard about KYAML? Not the customized thing, but there's a new proposal. You know about it, Matt?
Wait, I might be thinking about something different.
I dropped the link in there. It's a KEP from Tim Hawken suggesting that all of Kubernetes use flow style YAML everywhere, basically. And it's getting a lot of traction, but mostly from, it seems like, other Google people. So I commented a lot in there with, at first I was pointing him in right directions, but then I realized that the scope of it was that they wanted you know, they're going to suggest like flow style means the JSON style, but it's a very specific one. And like all the documentation for YAML, they're going to suggest moving to using curly braces and square brackets for everything. I think only to solve, you know, a missing dash or indentation problems. That's the idea. So I think it will. I think the Helm team should. George pointed me at this. You remember that, George? And then I got heavily involved in it over the last 2 weeks. But you know, I think I think I need. If this raises concerns, which I would hope that it would, I think that some of this team needs to weigh in on that. It's quite a the cap's quite huge at this point. If there's any questions, I could probably answer them.
So just to
So
be clear, the impact would be that the generated manifests from Helm would have to adhere to a more
The
strict
specific cap
output.
is that they want kubectl to output this format instead of regular YAML. I mean, it's still valid YAML, right? But and then they want, but then, which is fine. I mean, I don't. What does it matter if kubectl, which doesn't really make sense because like it's just kubectl is always going to output valid YAML. So what they really want is like people modifying output of kubectl to not do it wrong or have less chance of doing it wrong. I don't know how.
Yeah, so if I understand it right, like there's a bunch of ways to do bools, right? And what they're saying is there's only one way to do bools with KYAML, and we'll just output the KYAML intention for doing bools, and the other things will be transformed into it, kind of thing.
Well, that's one. Sure, that's probably.
But
yeah,
it's like
I mean,
a specific dialect, and if people use other things in YAML,
right,
it will transform it into their dialect of YAML. Is that
but
right?
it's not the YAML that anybody knows. It's the, you know, people don't. Most people using YAML don't even know you can use square brackets or curly braces, and so, and you can no longer use indentation-based YAML in this format. I mean, that wouldn't be KYAML. And so you could still use that anywhere you want, but all of the documentation and, you know, they're suggesting that Helm use this for all of its templating, which I pointed out is a disaster because Helm already has Go stuff in there with curly braces. It's just going to be curly brace soup, right? If you're using curly braces for both.
Yeah, and it's not just that it's going to be curly brace soup. People already have a lot of conventions for this. And so it's from a user experience standpoint, and I'm happy to go weigh in. It's the user experience for what people do with YAML is already very much in place. Like if Kubernetes were much younger and trying to do this, it would be different. But there is so much out there in the wild. There's so many books, videos, blog posts, all of this out there saying one way. So to go change the Kubernetes documentation to have a dialect that's very different from those is going to create confusion across all of those who are attempting to learn. So if I look at that persona, that's the one that I see. So I'm happy to jump on there, and I think others should too.
Yeah.
But I do see a problem just in the world of personas and teaching people this stuff, that this will actually be confusing for more people than not.
I mean, as the YAML guy, I see it as fracturing YAML across the board yet more, where I'm trying to. Oh, by the way, the YAML fork has shipped. It's solid now. I'll make an announcement probably today or tomorrow. It's been shipped since Monday. In other words, the vanity URLs now work for that. I can talk more about it next week.
Okay, so question, just one question. So this is the cap.
Yeah.
From what I see. That's his PR branch. What is you're bringing up on the Helm call, is there and I just want to point out the time. We want to save like maybe 2 minutes at the end for assignments, 1 to 2. So we have
okay.
4, 3, 2 minutes. Is there an impact on Helm that you see specifically? You know, is the because I haven't read this full proposal.
Like suggesting that Helm use this format for for its
I mean,
template. Sure.
I mean, is the
Yeah,
change
so the
proposed
impact
to
on
be
Helm,
part of the
Scott,
Kube API? And yeah.
this is not expecting to be part of the Kube API. What they're
Okay.
saying is they have a dialect of YAML that is existing valid YAML today. And instead of using when you create your YAML documents the way people normally do, change the syntax you use to a different valid syntax. And so when you use Helm create, right, we should change our syntax to follow the new KYAML syntax instead of the syntax that's there today. I think that's the direct impact on Helm that he's asking for. But otherwise, it would be entirely up to Sharp maintainers to do whatever they want, and all of it would still be valid and still work.
Right. So to be clear, it'd be to set a good example. That would be the impact on what they're asking for us. Is that correct? To set the example that they're asking us to set for folks, but it wouldn't have a functional impact.
Sure.
What do you mean by functional impact? What do you mean by functional impact?
That existing syntax of YAML would not be blocked.
No, as Ingy said, it's a different syntax of YAML. Both would be supported. At least that's I'm taking from him. And so they're just asking us to use a dialect. Well, it's all still valid YAML. It's just to use a dialect of it.
I'll say one last thing. Take a close look at the multi-line strings. They're kind of a disaster. You have to end every line with /and/ and begin every line that doesn't start it with a non-space with a //. So yeah, just take a look at. Matt, I would really appreciate it if you would maybe weigh in on this ticket while it's still open, because they're trying to close it or merge it really fast, and I don't know what that all entails, but I was told it wouldn't go GA for several release cycles, but still, I think it's time to weigh in from the Helm team.
Thanks, Angie. I was just clarifying so I could be like, how high priority? Okay, thank you. All right, so I think we don't have time for more hip review now, but do we have specific shout outs or social media amplification? Okay, so skipping to assignments, who would like to be a moderator next week?
I can do it.
Okay, great. And note, who would like to take notes? Can anyone? I actually cannot next week. I'll be at a KCD.
Matt,
I'll go ahead and do it. I volunteer.
Okay. Issue triage. I can do that too.
I can do issue triage and PR review. Not all of it. Some of it.
Great. And was that Terry that said that?
Yeah, same.
Okay.
I could do both.
Okay. And for me, same with PR. Okay, so then I'll list anyone else who wasn't already on this list that's a maintainer who can be present next week. I think I guess Evans would be the only person as a triage maintainer. Or actually, yeah, that's a core maintainer. Oh yeah, you can't next week. Okay, great. All right, so that's a wrap. It's at the top of the hour. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on Slack and see you next time.
And Matt, can I grab you real quick after the call? I'll reach out.
I have another call I got to jump right over to. So yeah, I'm sorry, I can't chat right now.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
No problem.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.